Têkkel Talk Show live. But late tonight, 5 minutes late. Apologies for being a bit late. Load shedding my side. And the lights just came on. Good evening, Alberic, and welcome to Têkkel Talk Show on a Thursday.
As dit hy nie lekker lekker om hier te wees. Ja, ek het load shedding wat nou binnekort gaan slaan so dit as dit donker hier raak aan my kant so moenie worry nie. Hy nie gaan vir die res van die aand aan die geselskap hou. So
Laat gaan jou krag af.
ja. Ek word daar af te gaan. Moet nie te hard praat nie. Want dan hoor eens kom. So ons kyk maar welcome guys. Welcome to another Têkkel Thursday. Baie woorde te gesels en gaan 'n lekker aand wees.
Nee, verseker baie. Dankie vir die waarskuwing dat jou krag ook nou gaan afgaan. Maar kom ons kyk wat ons kan doen en dit is nou nie so lekker donderdag soos wat ons gedink het nie. Die Springbokke vasgevall teen die ure. Ons het gedink die Springbokke gaan hier in 'n deur raak, maar ons gaan so lekker gesels en dan ook 'n bietjie later in die program het ons 'n professionele afrigter wat net vir ons 'n bietjie ons concerns 'n bietjie lig op die storie gaan werp, Alberic, maar ja, a bitter pill to swallow as we go down against Ireland. We had our opportunities. We had a few opportunities, and if everything went according to plan, it could have been a bit different, but not to be.
Yeah, not to be. Pity for the result. Yeah, I think we all backed the Boks. It was baie confident die Bokke gaan iets wys. And this, that brings us to tonight's, kind of title of what we want to kind of talk about tonight. We kind of hope that things will kind of transpire in a way that the Boks will, probably have something more to show. Because there's some decisions that you think is, a typical Bok. Boks will definitely revert to what they know. And in the last 10-15 months, we didn't see those the rolling balls that we all talk about, etc., man. But yeah, look, there's a lot to talk about. We invite everybody, please come and join the discussion. YouTube user, yes, boys. Please drop us. Let us know who you are. I was just seeing the default name, but welcome to Têkkel. So it's going to be a lot to talk about, and I just touching on the weekend's results.
Yeah.
Some big wins, some small ones. You see, obviously, Namibia didn't play twice in the same round. As you can see at the bottom there, Namibia played the first match of the previous round, and obviously last night they went down to Uruguay. So France making a big statement, 96-0. I'm so glad they didn't touch that 100 points because, that's just very demoralizing. Argentina good win over Samoa. Good game between Georgia and Portugal. Went down to the wire, and I would almost say a win for Portugal. We would all reckon that Georgia would have probably put one past the Portuguese. England, building nicely, coming away with a 71-0 win against Chile. There's a bit of momentum building on the English side. They don't necessarily have all the ducks in a row just yet, but they're definitely building quietly in the background. And when you have this competition with two halves, where you're on the one half, you have all these weighted, teams with the top 4-5 teams on the one side of the draw, and you have England, Wales, and Australia on the other side. England sitting quite pretty at the moment on their side of the draw. Obviously, South Africa and Ireland we will touch on. Boks going down 8-13 to Ireland. Scotland, a good win over Tonga. Wales, wow, massive one, 40 points to 6 against the Aussies. Big win, and that's a big statement. Again, I don't know when last you'd have seen a Welsh team putting 40 points against any kind of team, to be frank. And then also Uruguay winning against Namibia last night. Tough one for our neighbors. It was went down, also quite close, 10-point difference. But what a pity.
Yeah, they had the game. They had the game in their hands, and discipline just let them down. They had two players leaving the field for ill discipline. One yellow card reversed to a red card, and that just cost Namibia. Namibia actually leading this game at halftime. They were in front during halftime, but they were just very, very ill disciplined in the second half, and that cost them the game against Uruguay. But yeah, Alberic, like you said, a few teams just boiling under very silently. England, one of them, and later on in the week we will see the All Blacks playing against, let's say against Italy. So that is also a team going under the radar because France, Ireland, the Springboks taking much of the pundits' attention as some of the favorites to go on to win. But we now know the probabilities of the teams that will get each other in the quarterfinals. So England sitting very pretty in a very nice draw if everything goes according to plan. And then also New Zealand now having the probability of having to face Ireland in the quarterfinal, given the result between the Springboks and Ireland over the weekend. So there's a lot to play for, and some of the things not going according to script. I think a lot of the people would have thought Springboks to top their pool. It seems that it will not happen, especially now with the Irish having beaten the Springboks in that pool. It all seems to be, if the stars align, the Springboks to play France in the quarterfinal of the Rugby World Cup. And we will obviously speak a lot about that tonight, because there are people now saying that Rassie, Ninaber, and Coach perhaps had something up their sleeve. And a lot of the people say the Boks played out of character. I also think the Boks played totally out of character. We were a bit puzzled about what we saw, but was it a question of the Irish pushing the Boks to submission, or was it a case that the Boks were holding back something for that playoff games?
It's tricky, eh? It's so tricky. I mean, you know, deep down you think to yourself, yes, man, ek wens dit was so, man. That we don't know. Look, we don't know, and you know, the Boks have to pull a World Cup win out of the hat to kind of justify certain decisions. Again, we don't know, and again, at that point, who do you face? Do you run the risk? Because there was a risk that the Boks, if they lost that game, they probably would have been, you know, in a scenario where Scotland, if they had to beat the Irish, you run the risk of your destiny lying in the Scots' hands. I think the bonus point just kind of helped us. So either Russia did their homework, worked out that for us to get to the next round, they need to make sure that we have the bonus point at least. But yeah, at the end of the day, you still want to. I think the lesser of two. I mean, you want to whether you face the All Blacks or the French at home. It's all going to be difficult, and I think, you know, again with spoke about it I think before, myself and you, about Anton Dupont's injury. It's a massive blow for them. However, there are talks that will be coming up for the quarterfinals. Die man gaan met 'n masker speel hy nie. Ek bedoel, Jessie, hoe gaan hy masker lyk? Ek bedoel, he fractured a cheekbone. Dis nie speletjies. I mean, that's I mean, to go and against the Springboks. Kyk, as die Bokke 8-0 split in sy verdie game, nou moet jy weet, dan gaan Anton sê, nee, los maar die masker. Ek sal maar van die kant in die game of kyk maar, because but he's a big loss to the French, and I think we obviously fancy our chances. But bring it to your point, Heini, there's a lot of talk about not playing to their depths, not playing to the corners in those last minutes. I thought to myself, you know, if Mani's not at the moment on his best form with a boot, and so for Faf as well, and for all other guys that have the Damons, Willemses, and obviously Ches and Colby, they're not necessarily 80% kickers. However, I thought at one point, if we are in the slot, let's say we're in the in the 50 meters and we 10 meters either side of the post, then that's our shot range. Any penalty outside of that, gaan jy hoek it to. So is it a case of the Boks didn't employ that? Or was it just a case of let's test? There's a moment for us to test match knockout rugby, and in a game where we could possibly risk it. Is that the case, perhaps, maybe?
I think it's one of two reasons. There can only be two reasons for explaining what I saw on Saturday. It's either, and you can see at the bottom of the screen, and I hope it's the case, that the Boks have something up their sleeve. You cannot play a 7-1 split and get it so dismally wrong.
Yeah.
That is the one reason that they have held back some of the plays to not show, and that is highly unlikely. I'll tell you why it is unlikely. That this would be your only real test to test yourself against a top-tier team going into the playoffs. The other reason is there's no way that you will risk a 7-1 split and then you don't employ some of those plays. The other reason why I think that it didn't go to plan was I think that the Irish just countered the Boks, and we will speak to Dr. Wilbur Kraak, a professional coach, a sports scientist, later on. I think they got the timing of the subs, the Springboks, it was totally off. It was wrong.
Yeah.
It didn't work at all. It didn't work at all.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no logic. And I will read off later on when we speak to Dr. Wilbur Kraak. I will show you how they deployed their 7-1 split with Kobus Reinach only coming on in the 75th minute. There's reasons for that. But the big shock was that Kwagga Smith went on in the 48th minute. Kwagga was one of 4 subs they made. It was an absolute shock. Now, Barry, perhaps we can just go into, before we get, just show the viewers the subs we've made and then the minutes that they took to the field. I think it was something that really concerned me because that was one part of the competition that we really saw. There is the Springboks and there are the subs that they deployed. 7-1 split. The split was obviously Kwagga Smith, Van Staden, Snyman, Klein, Akani, Dion Fourie, Oxenche with the one lone ranger in the backline, Kobus Reinach. They deployed 4 subs. Kwagga for Wiese, Snyman for Moster, Klein for Etzebeth, and Oxenche for Kitshoff in the 48th minute. Kwagga Smith, being on the field, who was a guy that perhaps would have covered that one backline position. And then they made their last sub for the forwards, Dion Fourie for Bongi Umbenambe in the 64th minute. Guess what? The Irish made a sub, a prop in the 75th minute, and they subbed a loose forward on in the 64th minute. They played a 5-3 split. So that nullified, I think, some of the play of the Springboks and left us a little bit short, Alberic.
100%. And, you wondered because it was a case of, the fact that we have seven forwards on the bench. It felt like the Ireland knew they had to put that extra in the tank and then extend the time these guys were playing further into the half. And that's why you had a prop coming on in the 75th minute. I just felt they did it so much better than what we did. However, on the sub that was done on the 48th minute when he brought up Ox, Jean Klein and Moster, that was the time that they actually had a bit of momentum gain. They got a penalty, and that was when the try was scored, if I'm not mistaken, at that moment. So there was winning or a win from that situation. However, the rest of it didn't really go according to plan. I think if you're taking a guy like Etzebeth off in the 48th minute. It just felt like it was almost a scripted and not necessarily a strategic in him Etzebeth being the player that he is, probably the best lock in the world at the moment, and just being taken off so early in the game when you thought is it a moment of just
and the captain.
A romantic decision to bring on Jean Klein because he played against the Irish, or what was that decision?
Now, I think, and to take off Kolisi, you could see in some of the plays, they were looking at one another. Yeah. They were unsure. Captain is not on the field. There was still a half an hour left. And remember, it was advantage Springboks when Gary Ringrose had to leave the field with a head injury, Rob Henshaw, which means the Irish already had only 7 subs left, of which 2 of them were left backline players. That wasn't a tactical shift. That was because the doctors or the medical specialists thought at that time that Ringrose, who was a very important player for them, perhaps had some concussion. But we'll check. I'm not sure whether Dr. Wilbur Kraak is on. I think it's a great time to get the coach in, because there's a lot of debate around this, and I think he would probably want to chat to us. Doc, welcome to Têkkel Talk Show once again. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Arnie. Hello, Barrick. Lekker om julle weer te sien.
Lekker, welcome, Wilbur.
I like the chat. I like the approach, and I don't think you need me after that insightful discussion. So it's great being here. Thanks a lot.
Doc, welcome. I see you are in blue, so I'm not sure whether you're supporting Samoa later on, but let's not think that you are a blue ball for now. But just latching on to the chat, there was a lot of debate. We had Jonathan Mokoena last week speaking about his concerns on the 7-1 split. We were optimistic and very excited that our Springboks would, even when they trail against Ireland in the second half, show some impetus. There were moments, I think one scrum when we really shoved them away off the ball. What was your feel in terms of your just your gut feel right from the start and what you saw on Saturday?
Yeah, you touched earlier. Did we hold back? I don't think a World Cup is an opportunity to hold back. Every game is a knockout game, and that needs to be approached. It's knockout rugby, so you need to go for the kill. So I think to approach it like that and say that we're gonna hold back, and I think that's not why we play the game. So you want to do your best when you go on the park. I think if you want to hide a few things, yes, that is fine, but but you still need to play to your strengths. And you touch on we didn't maul enough. If you look at the Springboks and if you look at them the last couple of years under Rassie and then now Jark, so they're a team that momentum is important for them. So gain line success, that is important. That's why they select guys like Eben Itzebeth and Damien de Allende. So that's guys that's going to give them momentum. And then also I think we are mauling side, and then we're also a team that scrums for penalties. So and that is what, if you look at the Springbok DNA. Yeah, for me, so when I saw we're going a 7-1 split, I thought that's going to be the approach, and that's going to be the consistency. You touch on a very important part where you look at the substitutions. I think the timing of the substitutions for me also was a bit of a kop krap, especially if you take off your captain and then Bongi's your captain, but then you're taking off on the 64th minute. I would have liked Bongi to play through because he's our best scrummer, if you look at the hookers. And yeah, so I think personally, we're a team that needs to get into the 22, but our strike rate our conversion rate in the 22 wasn't great. But there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. I think it starts with who do you select, and who you select will dictate how you play. And I don't think we didn't see that. I don't think we play to our strengths, and yeah, there can all a lot of reasons why we lost. But I think we also need to go back to the drawing board, and we also need to compliment Ireland. I don't think it was, even though it was a hard test match. It was really a battle. It was a contest. It wasn't great rugby from both sides. I think the Boks were not clinical enough, and so we could put them under pressure. But if you look at stats now, and they're one of the best attacking sides at the World Cup. If you just look at the number of line breaks, the number of offloads, the number of tries scored. So I personally believe it was a tightly contested test match, but it wasn't a spectacle.
Yeah. Doc, and just with that said, I mean, you watch the game different to others where we're watching it with our heart. I mean, with your knowledge, you're looking at a lot of other factors. And one question that I have, and also just popped up, there's a few questions coming through, guys. Thanks for that. Keep the questions coming through. William Brinkies. Let me just show this. Here we go. William Brinkies says, obviously the coaching staff have got a lot more info with regards to running meters, tackles made, etc. On what basis do we decide to sub a player? It's a good question because, again, we don't necessarily see what from a spectator point of view. We want to see that we have momentum, and we as spectators react to that. However, there's stats. There's a lot of other things that goes on behind the scenes. How critical and how easy is the access to technology at that moment, knowing that is he putting in the meters, is he putting in the tackles? Is that kind of information that they get firsthand on the field, almost in real time?
Yeah, so the Springboks will most probably have the first thing. If you normally look at in the coach's box, they'll have normally a guy sitting next to Jarks who's the analyst. So you'll do live coding, So you look at things at specifically at 22 entries, conversion rate, penalty kicks. So you'll look at specific things, and then also they get data from the GPSs that the players wear, so they'll get meters covered, intensity. But also, as a sports scientist, and maybe I'm but contradicting what we do. Yes, we work with data, but data should inform your coaching decisions. It shouldn't be make your decisions for you. So I think if you look at a guy like Bongi sub for me, I was puzzled after that substitution because you're taking off. It's getting crunch time. You want to have your best scrummager on the field. And then you bring Dejan Fourie on and you make him captain as well. So even though he's experienced, he hasn't experienced hooker firstly in a long time. Secondly, he hasn't captained the Springboks. So even though he's 36 years old, that's crunch time that's where you want your most experienced players.
Yeah.
Maybe they had to, if they wanted to go 7 split, maybe have a Dwayne Vermeulen on the bench to come on and take that captaincy role, because then you need calmness and you need someone to make a decision. And maybe also play Sia true. And if you look at who they're playing Sia this week, maybe rest him this week against Tonga and let him play true. So there's a lot of things that we can look at. But yeah, the coaches look at different factors to make informed decisions. But there's also a thing like common sense and who you need on the field at that stage. And leadership is vital. And they speak a lot about the leadership group. But I think if you just look at that team and in the pack at that stage, Peter Steph du Toit was the most experienced on at that time. And then so maybe take Peter Steph off and keep Bongi on and move Dion to the side, because then you've still got your 2 line-out option. You got Kwagga as a 3rd line-out option, if that is your worry. And I think that influences our scrumming, because if we get to crunch time and you want to buy a penalty, you're gonna rely on your set pieces. So that is important, yeah. So, but the comment is valid that they have a lot of information to make informed decisions. But again, as I said earlier, that should inform your coaching. It shouldn't replace and take away the decision-making power.
I just want to add, you need to trademark that, Doc, because there's already one to be listeners, joining saying they do to inform, not make. Well said, Coach. And I think that's so important. So you need to trademark that.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a good comment. From our side, going into the playoffs, we've seen many guys, and this includes Jonna and Jonathan McQuena, confirmed. We were one of them who said we don't believe that we will see a 7-1 split in the World Cup, and we will not see a 7-1 split on the bench for the Springboks in knockout games. Ek kan niks verby die coaching staff meesit nie. Hulle het 'n loskakel vir Hakker vang met 'n loskakel, het 'n 7-1 split gespeel. Hulle sap links reg van jou kant af, net jou perspektief. Going into the quarterfinals, and let's say the Springbok go all the way. The 7-1 split, is it sustainable, and do you think it will work for the Springboks?
Yeah, I want to take it a step back, Ani. I think what was nice about especially the All Black game prior to the World Cup, and now this, what we need to compliment the coaching staff on, they're willing to take risk. In the past, the Springbok team was very. I think we played it safe. That was our approach, and so we need to compliment and compliment them on doing that. But I think going forward, we need to play to our strengths. And in previous World Cups, in the competitions after the World Cup, a 6-2 split was always most of the time our successful setup if you're on the bench. But then we also need to look at who do you select on your bench, and leadership is vital, especially in knockout rugby. So maybe it's useful to have a guy like a Dwayne Vermeulen on the bench if your intention is to not play Sia true. If your intention is not to play Bongi true, your bench needs to add that leadership and that value to make that tough decision. So I think hulle gaan met baie kop krap, but I go back to your strengths. What works for you? And I don't think we should dwell on the island loss. I think just move forward. You tried things, it didn't work. Learn from it, and we move forward. So that would be my approach. I think we've got a tougher draw against the home nation, even though the pond is not there. Ons weet wat home teams and referee
You
decision.
reckon you reckon it's tougher draw playing France in New Zealand?
Yeah, if you play a home nation at a World Cup, yeah, I think that is the tougher one. Alles hy Frans hier is begin huil, dan moet jy weet dis 'n lang aand. So yeah, so I don't think the All Blacks also they're struggling with confidence. So I think I think tomorrow night they'll win easily. They'll put 30 points past Italy. But I don't think they're going into this knockout with a lot of confidence. I think they're struggling still with certain combinations. They've got key players back now, like Geordie at 12, and then the loose forward is back. So I think they've got for me, they've got, out of the teams that they selected this whole tournament, they got the best balanced teams for this weekend. But yeah, but I still do think if we ended up first, it would have been an easier route.
Lekker.
Doc, and what's on everybody's lips at the moment is the Manie Libbok Pollard situation that we have right now. And let's not call it a situation because there's many a Pollard fans, many a Manie fans fan out there. But obviously, and we don't know if it's a technical issue. A lot has been said about the fact that his angle towards the kicking tee is a bit off. There was comments mentioned that maybe the tee is too high, etc. Fellow saying my observation, my kicking pre-kick routine is being hampered by the added pressure of a stricter shot clock, which is also something that if you look at when he kicks literally with 3 or 4 seconds left on the clock. He kicks, so it's definitely that's playing on the mind. And how important is that for a player of his caliber to be? I mean, you're obviously aware of that. How's Richard saying? Damon Willems he's man of the match, and yeah, Damon had a fantastic game. But how important is that for a player like Manie? Because kicking is a rhythm type of situation. You're kicking with rhythm. How important is that clock to a guy like Manie?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with your initial question about Andre and Manie. So to start off, I'm a big Manie fan. I think he brought something different to our attack.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a guy in South Africa, and the only other guy that I think can pass 20 meters flat and consistently. I think that he's brought a new dimension to our attack. And I think where Andre, the risk of bringing Andre now is you need to change your style. I'm still a firm believer. I do think they can both play. Andre at 12 can be a different dimension. I won't leave Manie out now, but that in reality also I think Manie will be the first guy to admit that his kicking performance was not on par. I think that is the most important thing, and I've read in the media and I've read on social media people's comments that about people blaming Manie for the performance. I don't think kicking was the only contributing factor, but it was definitely a contributing factor. Knowing Manie, he's a professional, so he'll admit that his kicking wasn't great. But I also don't think we should shy away that we give him negative feedback. So that is also important because that's how he's going to learn. Just to come back to the clock, the clock, this is not the first time that we're using it. He was exposed to it earlier. So in the URC Rugby Championship, so that's been, so I don't, and he preps well. So the input and what I saw of him in a couple of, he preps really well. So he'll practice under that clock. But it's difficult for kickers to simulate match conditions. And I think sometimes his action that is involved with before he kicks. So that also, let's say he was down in a ruck and all of a sudden now you get a penalty and the clock starts. So you need to regroup yourself, going through your processes. So that plays a role, the action prior to the kick. I think kicking going forward is always going to be vital, but maybe wasn't this a great opportunity for us in them to maybe to get Garrett Wright over that works with Manie. Just to because I think it's more. I'm not a kicking specialist, so I'm not gonna guess here what is the reason contributing. Because in the URC last year, he kicked very well. He had a strike rate of 85%, So there's maybe just technical things and pressure. I don't think just the clock contributes to that, but I think also this expectation that people want you to do well. And then there's also this group of people that want you to fail. And the reality is fly-off is a key position, and it's been a key position for the Boks. And I think it's the first time in a while that we get a baller on 10, which excites me. He's only 26 years old. He's going to gain a lot of experience from this campaign. So I think for going forward, Mani's going to be our first choice 10. But if he can sort out his kicking, I don't think there's a player in South Africa at the moment that comes close to him to decision making, can kick from both feet. And what people do is he's kicking to poles overshadows all the great things that he did. He's kicking for touch. He's decision making. And I think he plays with a lot of confidence. And Mani going forward, I think just he needs to grind, needs to sort out a couple of things. But I would have flown Garrett Wright over just to come and work with him and just to settle his nerves, and also someone that knows him well, because kicking is not just about technique. There's the mental aspect to it as well. There's the influence of the crowd, and then because for this player, it's his first World Cup experience. He haven't played 80,000 people there, and you sometimes, because I spoke to the physio that I know well of the team, and he said it's very noisy. You can't even sometimes struggle to hear what the coaches say over the radio. So you can imagine what the players feel. So there's a lot of things to contribute, but I don't think dropping Mani is the best way forward.
Yeah,
100%.
Yes, a lot of knowledge coming from the doc. But doc, altyd lekker om met jou te gesels. Voor ons gaan, wil ek jou vinnig op die spot sit. Ek wil die mense beloof ons gaan hulle 9 uur uitkry Samoa teen Japan. Springbokke se kanse nou, ek sien Sia en Jacques het 'n lekker chuckle gehad in 'n press conference toe een joernalis, ek dink dit was Hendrik of iemand gevra. Maar wat is die kanse nou nadat die Ierland vir hulle 'n losing gegee het? Jy het genoem dit is nie die slegste ding in Ierland te verloor nie. Daardeur lees ek dat jy sê die Springbokke se kans om die wêreldbeker te wen is niks minder as wat dit was toe ons in die eerste week daar geland het. Wat dink jy realisties nou om te gaan speel teen Frans? Waar dink jy kan die Springbokke realisties eindig? Is dit moontlik?
Ek dink die Bokke het nog die spelers om dit te maak wen. Ek dink ons met ons ervaring, ek dink net die spanseleksie gaan baie belangrik wees. Ek dink of gaan ons 6-2 split gaan en wie kies ons en wat se tye maak ons die subs, daar gaan vir my een ding wees. Ek dink die tweede ding is ons gaan met nou sterkpunte speel. Ek dink teen Frankryk gaan ons met Frankryk is 'n span wat baie op emosie speel en hulle kan iets maak uit niks uit nie. So ek dink van balbesit van hulle weghou, ons wil op die gainline speel, ons wil daai momentum kry. Skram vir penalties en ek dink hier daar's as ek nou net kyk na Oxenche en Kitshoff, ek dink dis een van die twee beste loskoppe wat ons het met Ox. Skram, as hy opkom, hy maak 'n groot verskil. Trevor het 'n groot verskil gemaak. Maar ek dink daar's net iets missing met ons backup hakker. En ek dink Dion Fourie is 'n goeie speler, maar as 'n backup vir soos daar moet 'n spesialis tweede keuse haker wees. En ek dink dit kan ons dalk in die voet skiet tensy ons vir Bongie laat deurspeel en so dit gaan belangrik wees. Ek dink Bongie is nou een van die buitenskoppe, is Bongie een van die belangrikste spelers vir ons vorentoe. Maar indien ons 'n besering kry, gaan ons 'n haker moet optrek. Dis ek dink nie
en dit gaan nou seker twee
daaroor. Ja, nee, dit gaan belangrik wees. Ek dink die interessant gaan wees wat hy gaan doen met die Handrey Mani situasie. Dit gaan ook vorentoe speel jy hulle as jy vir Handrey speel, dan haal jy daai opsie van die 6-2 split eintlik uit. So dan moet jy met 'n 9 gaan, jy gaan met 'n 10 wat vir jou 12 kan dek en dan moet jy outside back kies. So ek dink dan kan ek ou soos Caden Moody dalk in die prentjie kom wat vir jou 13, 14 en jy het vir Colby en vir Arends wat vir jou 15 kan dek. So as hy met Handrey gaan speel is 5-3 dalk die beste opsie, nie 6-2 nie. En ek dink op die oomblik kernspelers vir ons vorentoe, soos ek vroeër gesê het, ek dink Bongie is belangrik, ek dink Damian Willems is baie belangrik en ek dink Mani, hallo, ek dink hulle moet vir Mani back. En as jy vir Andre opbring, as ek dalk moet jy ook die game kan lees, is dalk nie die beste om vir Manie te vervang nie, want dan moet jy ook jou tactics verander en hoe jy gaan speel. Want ek sê, die Manie is ou wat hy kan flat speel, hy kan diep speel, hy kan vir jou van linksvoete af regskop, so hy bied vir jou baie meer. So ek dink die Bokke se kanse vorentoe, ek dink is baie goed. En ek dink nie, mense het nou oor een verloor, maar een verloor is nie, dit maak nie 'n toernooi nie. En ek dink ons het geleer, maar ek dink jy het 'n bonuspunt gekry, so ek dink baie mense sê nou ja, as Skotland vir Ierland wen as die Bokke dalk uit. Ek dink die Bokke in Ierland 1 en 2 is klaar gevestig. Ek dink Skotland gaan Ierland, hulle gaan dalk 'n bonuspunt kry teen hulle, maar ek dink hulle gaan kompeteer vir 'n plek in die kwartfinale. Maar die span wat vir my die meeste vir my excite in die play-off is Fiji. En dis ek kies altyd 'n tweede span, en dit was my tweede span net oor hulle away jersey.
I said the same thing. Ja, so pragtig away jersey kry hy nie. Gee was beautiful away jersey.
So ja, nee, ek dink die Bokke ek dink die mense moet opgee op die Bokke, en ek dink as exciting. Maar ek dink as 'n paar goed, so spanseleksie, timing of subs, wie hou ons op die veld, leierskap. En ek dink ons approach, ons is 'n span wat in die 22 moet kom, pressure bou, maar ons moet convert. So as dit nou penalties is of 3 druk, maar set pieces gaan vital wees, of Smalling gaan vital wees. En ek dink iets wat die Bokke, mense weet wat om te verwag van die Bokke, maar hulle is klinies baie goed, en dit is wat vir hom gekos het in Ierland.
Doc, just before you go, I need, sorry, Doc, just one, actually a comment and not necessarily a question from Richard that says, guys saying Dr. Crack's contact details to the Wallabies Rugby Union. Sad to see them on hold down now. Yeah, so that's a discussion for another day.
Hey, gaan ons saam. Maar Dok, dankie, die inkomste is altyd wyse woorde van jou kant af, en ek dink 'n lekker ander perspektief as net ons wat met ons viewers gesels. En sterkte daar by die universiteit en met jou werk vorentoe in die rugby. Ons is seker ons gaan vir jou nog vorentoe sien. In fact, jy het onlangs 'n baie eksklusiewe kwalifikasie voltooi, en ons hoop om vir jou binnekort daar in die groen en goud geleedere te sien.
Ja, baie dankie. Baie dankie. Lekker om julle te sien in Alberg, en sterkte met die show.
Dankie hoor. Het jy dit. Dr. Wilbur Kraak, sportwetenskaplike professionele rugby afrigter, en een van 'n baie ouens wat onlangs SA Rugby is 'n exclusive coaching qualification gevoltooi het. Ek hoop regtig dat binnekort vir coach Wilbur Kraak daar in die top structures gaan van rugby. LB, Dr. Kraak het een ding wat uitgestaan. Ja, lot of insight, en jy kan sien dit is 'n ou wat rugby kyk, nie met 'n bier in die handjie, maar rugby kyk in diepte. He used the term conversion rate getting into 22, and we know, and guys, we are saying this is not our own footage. Hence, the quality is not that great as SuperSport, because we don't want to use SuperSport's official footage. We do not have the rights to do so. We're going to show you 3 clips, and I'll talk you through them in no sweet sequence. Us getting over the advantage line, penetrating the defense, and wasting opportunities due to execution. And I think one of these clips, I almost broke my TV because I couldn't believe my eyes. And I then decided, no man, there's something seriously wrong. They have a look at this, and I think the Springboks really showed that they could penetrate. This is the clip where Damian Delende just goes right over, pure muscle. And unfortunately, we just couldn't convert. There was another opportunity where we had a beautiful scrum, Alberic, right in the center of the field. Played Jesse Kriel. Unfortunately, that didn't go to plan. Jesse popped the ball up high, and I think we just missed that one day. But we all know that Jesse came. There it is. Perfect. You cannot ask for a better scrum. The Springboks, I thought this was going to be a 7-pointer for sure. We get a nice steady scrum. Jasper setting it up, keeping the ball, and then Faf taking one of his very few correct decisions in this game. He comes the correct side, plays Jesse, hits it up very well, and then we squander another opportunity. I don't know whether the pass was too hard. Perhaps we should have kept it a little bit longer. That another opportunity. And then this one, early in the game, we had Faf right in the beginning of the game, had Faf passing a long ball right past Chesney Cowie, maar die een wat die koek gevat het. Die een wat die koek gevat het is hier. We kick the ball, we have Curtly Arendse competing in the air, winning it, and ek is net daar wat ek vir Faf sou afhaal as ek 'n 6-2 split het. Net daar sou ek vir Kobus gesê, Kobus, trek nou vir jou uit en gaan op die veld. Jy kan nie al die Irish se holle wys na hulle pale toe. They are all trailing back. Curtly goes up, he wins this ball. And the best thing that Faf should have done is pick it up and play Mani. Would have had Damien Willemse, Sia Kolisi all to his left. Hy skop hy bal wragtig waar weg ja Berry. And that was the story of our game. That was the story of our game. You can show many clips where we got in behind it, Sia carrying strong, Etzebeth carrying strong, Jasper getting off, and then we couldn't convert.
Yeah, you know, there's so many ifs and buts and what ifs and you know, I think Faf and I'm looking at just Faf's clip for a second. I think there's some glaring things that you know a Grant Williams brings that a Faf doesn't bring, and even a Kobus Reinach, you know, as that Faf obviously lacks.
And we couldn't bring Kobus up. We couldn't bring Kobus on the field because he was the lone ranger as the backline player.
Exactly.
I think it was clear that Faf was off his game, but they couldn't. They actually had to keep Kobus right up until the end.
Yeah, and also just with that said, I think with Faf, I think what Faf brings is a kind of situation where, you know, the guys respect him, the opponents, they respect him for being Faf and being nuggety and just being all over the place. But there's definitely situations where you would, you know, I must say, kyk Veldman, kyk buite. There was one pass that he passed, and I think he did a skip pass which could have easily landed up in somebody's hand of one of the Irish hands, and it could have been an intercept try. And it was a ball that was a hospital pass. I think it was Curtly that caught it high.
He did it in the very first play of the match.
Yeah, James Louter. Yes.
And and then he did it in the second time. It's actually both of the times it was a poor decision because he came the wrong side and then he wanted to almost rectify his decision with a skip pass. I don't think Faf had a very good game, and I want to say this, that he's not playing well for a couple of games now, and I think he's one guy that's really, you know, is the first choice come up, but he's not playing very well at the moment.
Yeah, I think even you know, Jaden Hendricks, for example, you know, he was our number one last year during the Rugby Championship. I think, and yes, he maybe didn't have enough game time, but I think, you know, Jaden should have, you know, been easily, you know, in a position to even start this weekend's game. I think it's Kobus starting this weekend, but Jaden has a better, I think, sense for space, and he takes the gap. When he takes the gap, I mean, we've seen 1 or 2 snaps from him as well. And he just has a, you know, better feel for him. I think there's a good competition amongst the scrum halves, and even though the Rugby World Cup is just that short, there is an opportunity to keep that competition going so that a guy can easily put up his hand. I mean, if Kobus Reinach he won't necessarily, you know, get pushed up into the starting lineup because of the game against Tonga. However, if you know, Faf continues in this vein, then we're missing a lot of opportunities, which is very, very glaring. And just with that said, and you spoke about, we had Damon, you know, the Allender, you showed the clip of Damon the Allender. You know, he played well the weekend. He played fantastic. I think he had some good movements on the ball and taking the ball up front. Is the conversation regarding Andre Pollard coming into play? Andre's defense is not that great. I mean, I don't think a lot of, you know, people normally see that. I think it was in last year's Rugby Championship. He missed 2 tackles after each other. I think it was Likiwani scored in the corner or something. So you have this situation where you have Pollard in the inside channel or inside center. Do you think he would, from a defensive point of view, do you think Andre can do what Damon does and better at the moment? Do you think that's just for the sake of kicking?
Yeah, I think all eyes will be on Pollard against Tonga. I I think it's going to be interesting to see, especially when Mane takes to the field. Do they sub Pollard, or do they keep him on and move him to inside center? I think Pollard, in terms of Test rugby, is very narrow, and you have the flankers to perhaps help him in that regard. We've seen Mane take a few brutal hits with Bandi Aki. That is the type of inside centers that you will encounter going forward. It's brutal in the narrow channel. So you are definitely right that in terms of size and especially diameters, it helps Damien Delaney to just stand there and man up. Can Pollard tackle as good? I don't believe so. But I think what is more concerning, and I know Dr. Wilberkraker said there is space for both of them, but he mentioned our model of play. You would see in all of our plays, a lot of the time when we do get good line-out ball or we get steady scrums, it goes straight to Damien Delaney. He carries hard. He takes us over the gain line, and that is going to have to change because Andre doesn't play that game. He's either going to carry into space for Mane, which means if he starts at 12 going forward to assist with goal kicking, we are going to have to see Damian Willemse getting the ball a lot wider because it's going to be one fly-off passing to another. And then obviously if the ball moves past Jesse Kriel, it's going to be Damian Willemse or Willie getting the ball on the outside, which is not a bad thing. But what makes the Springboks good, what makes Ireland good, is the Damien Delaney's, Bandi Aki's hammering that channel. Hulle breek die deur af daar en dit is waar die momentum dan vanaf kom. So ek is bietjie concerned, maar ek is excited om te sien.
Ek is ook Wat
is die plan?
Nee, ek stem heeltemal saam daar. I think that's my main concern. It's just Andre. Kyk, guys, let's be honest, Manie Libbok is the premier fly when it comes to playmaking. Pollard sal moet skoene vol staan. Ons gaan definitief sien in the first 30 minutes. No, you won't be able to. No, 100%.
Dan moet ons daai prys gee. Ons kan nie verwag dat Pollard kan doen.
Exactly. So these,
and that is concern for me.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think we must be looking at this game and saying, look, we have to score 5 tries. We have to score 4 tries to get the bonus point. That's the kind of secures, us. We have to win Tonga. And again, we don't take them lightly going into that game. However, Pollard's not going to give you what Mane can give. Even on Pollard's best day, he won't be able to give you what Mane can do. So that type of game plan, we're going to see something different, I would assume, against the Tongans in terms of how they're going to... Miskien sien ons meer dryfmale, omdat Pollard op daai tipe game speel en Pollard te skop, game to secure. But I doubt we're going to see any kind of form of run. I hope I'm surprised for the sake of getting a bonus point, but I doubt we're going to see any of that. One comment coming through, Steve Goliath saying we're seriously missing Lukhanyo Am's ability and brain in the middle. That X factor is not there. We miss him,
Yeah. Lukhanyo Am was obviously not ready. There was problems before the World Cup. And I think there was talks about Kainan Moody playing in this specific position. And we knew that Kainan would probably play the Tongas and maybe the Romanians, which we didn't see enough of. But they decided to go with Jesse Kriel as the deputy for Lukhanyo Am. And we knew that's going to be a serious... And if you look at the Irish game as well, twice, and one of them, they almost went on to score a try where we got timing of the rush defense totally wrong. Curtly Arthur bending in too close, playing over the top, and then the fullback of Ireland breaking us, really opening us up. That is where Lukhanyo was pivotal, reading that play, making sure that he stops the runners. So we're going to miss him, and we hope that we can get there without him. But like I'm saying, it's very difficult when you have these X-factor players not there. But I think Dr. Clark said we still have the personnel. Let's just have a look, Alberic. If there's no more comments, let's have a look at the team selected for Tonga. A lot of sighters, almost like, kom ons gee 'n paar manne 'n run. We remember, I think it's 12 or 10 working days, not working days, weekdays between this game and the quarterfinal. So, perhaps certain players getting a rest, but then we have Kane and Moody filling that specific position at number 13. Again, I think Jesse Kriel on the bench is going to be the number 13 playing in the quarterfinal, semi-final, and final if we go all the way. A strange omission, and we've heard in the grapevine, not confirmed, is that last week Dwayne Vermeulen, who's now playing at number 7, had a bit of a niggle. He was totally out of the squad, and he's now playing at flanker. Interesting call. Does that mean that they are taking him and that Jasper Wiese will be the starting number 8 and Dwayne almost like a floater on the bench who can come on at number 8, number 7, and then we can move Peter Step the 2 to lock if needs be. That to me is an interesting call because we know Dwayne is slightly short of game time in that preferred number 8 position.
Oh yes, and again, I think we spoke about Dwayne being, Jasper just hasn't hit his straps as the player of last year. I think that is something that it remains to be seen. I still think, from my point, I still think Dwayne is that incumbent. I think Dwayne has shown in the previous game, and maybe that was a rest game. Maybe it was a case of just give him a rest and see how he, just gets at least a week or 2 off at least. Again, the Boks will have a break after this, but Dwayne brings immense experience to that team. Very interesting point that Doc made just now was the fact that just thinking of the bench, you need to make sure that you have a situation where you have experience coming off the bench when with the chips are down, guys are looking down, looking at each other. You're bringing on a Deon Fourie. With all respect, Deon Fourie is a fantastic player, but having a Dwayne still playing that 80 minutes or a Bongi to make sure that you have that experience going, you know exactly what's going to be going on in that last few minutes. You don't want to be throwing a ball around and not having that experience. So that's a very, very pivotal point that he made. I think in general, this team does feel like it's a team of let's give guys a run. If you're looking at Jaden Hendricks, he hasn't probably played in a while. And I think, a guy like Mane coming off the bench, I think this is the game where they're going to be testing the probability of playing Andre on 12, and then Mane on 10, which is obviously very interesting. And, it could kind of solve our problem going into the knockout stages of the tournament. A pretty solid team. As Doc said just now, Vincent and Ox, fantastic scrummages, and I think they're really going to bring a real edge to it. But a good team nonetheless. I mean, everything aside, we still have a very good team that not necessarily our star team or A team, we call it that. That lines are blurred at the moment. There's no A and B at the moment. So, it's going to be interesting to see how these guys. We need to get 5 points out of this game. That's bottom line.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, reading between the lines, I think if you look at what has happened, and I think, Heinrich, thanks for your comment, what has played out, obviously the first injury to any of the players would have been, we get a guy like Hendrik Pollard across. But what I can read now, especially with Kobus Reinhardt, now with Jaden Faf being our number 1, it almost seemed, and it was for me a real concern, because I was going to think, how are we going to play 4 scrum halves over a short period of time like this, especially if you've also selected 4 specialist wingers in Makazole Mapimpi, Curtly Arendse, Colby, and Kane Moody. I would have thought Grant Williams would have covered that, but now we have 4 scrum halves and 4 wings. I would have thought, and this is the tactic I'm reading in here, it seems now to me that Grant Williams would have been the sacrifice to get Pollard over if it was not for the injury of one of our best players, if not the best player in Malcolm Marx. It seems to me the plan was Grant Williams for Andre Pollard, because I don't see a plan with Grant at the moment. If he's not playing here, he didn't play, so I don't see him featuring in the quarterfinal, semi-final, or final ahead of Kobus Reinhardt and Faf starting at number 9. So it seems to me he was always going to be the guy to be replaced by Henry. Instead, they went one better, replacing the hooker with a fly half, which I think was a mistake in the first place. Hence, we are now playing Deon Fourie and Marco van Staden. Marco van Staden will now replace Deon Fourie in this specific So yeah, interesting times. Would have loved to have a specialist hooker. Would have loved to have a specialist hooker in this group. And then one of the 4 scrum halves, I think, was a little bit, one of the 4 scrum halves should have been sacrificed. A lot of people are saying dat Andre was nie gesond nie, Andre was nie gereed nie. Ek weet nie hoe gereed het hy geraak tussen die seleksie van die 33 en nou nie. Wat het hy gedoen? Hy kon maar net soveel sakke gedra het, 'n paar hits gevat het hier en in die gimnasium gewerk het as deel van die groter 33. Daar was meer balans in hierdie squad, maar die coaches weet natuurlik baie meer wat ons weet.
Ja, ek dink wat gebeur het is ek dink hy wou daai Boks that send off where they got with that to hulle was op 'n step gebuk het. Hy het maar gedink nee, hou my liewe vir my die squad is almal later die daar is goed. Ek gaan weer hy net 'n comment weer wys. James, we posted Boks depth ad nauseum. Surely we shouldn't be doubting this and that. I'm sure the coaching staff looks at a player rotation and perhaps horses for courses. Let's rather look at how mobile and flexible the squad is. No, 100% what, it is about the depth you have. Again, without, repeating ourselves, we do have depth and it's good to rotate that. It's good to make sure that we have that rotation, giving guys breaks, and making sure that going into the quarters that we have a fresh squad. One point to be made, and we think 57 minutes, Aini. One point to be made is the fact that we've lost probably the best center in the world, arguably the best center in the world in Lucanio. We've lost the best, undoubtedly the best hooker in the world in Malcolm Boks. And then, without a doubt, with Pollard being off and not, being able to play in the squad, a very reliable kicker. Those are 3 players, and not to mention, I think it was Lode Jager, it's also off. Those are big names that we are sitting without. Those are big players we're sitting out. However, where we're at the moment, I think we're in a healthy situation where we would love Malcolm. He's our star player. However, we do have, backup plans, and kudos to Rassi and Jacques for the the way they've managed to build this depth over the last couple of years, and it's good to see that we can pull on these guys coming into the World Cup, and when it really matters. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think for the sake of this weekend's game, let's again. I don't want to be taking things for granted because I think when it comes to Tonga, I think it was in the 2007 World Cup. I think 2007 World Cup. They were pretty tough. 2011 World Cup, they were pretty tough. They didn't let us go that easily. But with that said, Heini, super bro. Jy het ons laas gepraat van 'n paar, jy het 'n paar calls gemaak. Ek dink die laaste call het jy gemaak, die opblyf gaan met 'n 100 en hoeveel was dit gewees?
Wie was daai ja? En die bokke 100 en iets.
100 en iets gewees, ja. 100 en iets gewees. So there's a lot to be said. I'm bringing it up. Give me a second to bring it up. But in the meantime,
I think Barry, what is nice about playing Super Bowl is that you see the odd upset. You get Namibia getting close against Uruguay, and then you get Wales beating Australia. A lot of us getting that wrong. And then there were a lot of people in the group that moved up and that called the Irish a win against the Springboks. And I know Angus, I think he's the yellow cap holder at the moment, he got that one right. He said that the Irish team will beat the Springboks, and I think he was very close with the margin as well. But yeah, there you have it. Ek was daar boeg en kyk waar ek nou, ek daar in die 7de posisie. Maar
early days. Is look at our leader, Elmo Adonis.
Die pad daar van Mamasbury, hy is daar top. Melly wat top gewees het, 'n bietjie afgeskuif. En dan Metelusine in die 3de plek. Maar daar kan jy hom nog vir my sien. En Angie, daar is die man. Angie boy, hy het mooi opgespring. Hy het weer gesak na die laaste game.
I think what you
Hy was heel onder gewees nog laaste en hy het ons almal
gekom En Angus het die deserved yellow cap. Daar is Furlow, hy's in 11de posisie. I'm here. I'm there. Ek is daar nie.
Dis nader aan bo as aan onder. Ja, nie mid-table.
Yeah, but let's see hoe Lucky Luke wat met Divik se hoorenspoed Lucky asseblief laat weet ons wanneer hy potjie kan kom enjoy saam met jy. Dit was nou die outlepel. So look, it's a tough one. You can see the pool is gedig hy nie. It's gedig as gewig in die pool.
Ek sien die wedstryd van Tonga en Japan gaan net begin. Ek het gegaan vir 'n nie Tonga nie, sorry, die ander eilandse span Samoa en Japan gaan oor, ek dink dit het begin. Ek het gegaan vir 'n Samoan victory. Ek dink Samoa gaan miskien iets doen. Wat het hy gesê?
Ek dink ek gaan Samoa. Wat is check actually? Miskien speel ek 'n game met jou nie. Gaan vir jou nie sê nie.
Ja, maar dit lyk 'n interessante pool. Dankie vir almal wat saam speel en ek hoop hulle weet ons gooi so 'n flash op die show. Maar ek vir ons nag sê ek dink wat ons gaan doen is kom ons flash gou net baie vinnig fan mail. Dit is personeellede, staff members from Steenville Secondary wat vir ons gestuur het. Hulle het Bok Friday gehou. Daar is hulle. Ja. Pragtig in die groen en goud. Al die pad daar van Pakketberg. Skool is daar in Pakketberg, Steenville Secondary. So daar aan Richard en die manne en dit is dieselfde skool wat daai golf het Elberik. Ek sien ook so.
Yes.
Ek het golfdag daar op die hoek in Pakketberg. En die fondse daar is hy. Die hoek in Pakketberg. Broodnodige fondse vir die skool en alle opbrengste wat gaan aan die skool wat 'n nuwe netbalbaan wil bou. Hulle netbalbane is 'n bietjie vorder en hulle moet elke wedstryd netbalbane moet hulle hier vir hierdie golfdag kan jy 'n bydrae maak met julle fondse om te help dat hulle die netbalbane weer in top kondisie kry sodat Steenville se leerders weer op hulle eie netbalbaan kan speel. Steenville se golfdag 7 Oktober die hoek trots geborg deur Superspar Boland en as jy 'n balletjie kan raakslaan moet jy definitief vir meneer Fredericks kontak 0782014813 of vir Mosman Moore. Daar is hy. Ons gaan hierdie banner net weer op ons Facebookblad gooi. So ons ondersteun die skool en ons hoop dat hulle sukses maak op 7 Oktober daar by die hoek. Ja, maar gaan ons 'n bietjie caddy daarso, 'n paar sakke daar of 'n bietjie inloop. En kyk daarso met vir daai lekker event. Maar eens ons het 'n bietjie laat begin, so 5 uur en dit is nou 4 minute oor ons tyd. Maar dankie aan Dr. Wilbekraat wat ingeloer het. Die insig getoon.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, what knowledge, and I think, it's good to have him on the show. We had him previously on the show before, what knowledge, right? I mean, some great nuggets. You must really trademark that line that we said. I think it's good to know. I mean, those kind of things we as fans and spectators, we view games differently. Hy het dit oor vir iets anders te sien.
Dankie aan almal wat ingeskakel het. Thanks so much. And if you are hearing some music the whole time, we have matriek balls here in my neighborhood, all over Cape Town, all over. En there's 'n bietjie musiek, so ons gun vir hulle ook 'n bietjie genot. So dankie ook aan hulle wat inloer. Maar die musiek klop lekker en dit gaan lekker wees. Matriek afskeide daar, so sterkte met dit. En dan ook voor afskeid wil ek net vir die mense daar as hulle ingeskakel is van Avalon Springs wat vir my so 2 weke terug opgeset het om die show daar uit te saai. Toe ek 'n bietjie pad is, ons simpatiseer met hulle is regtig sad om te kon sien hoe so skade daai plek gelei het met die onlangse floods. Maar baie dankie aan julle en dan ook dink ons aan julle in hierdie tyd waar julle 'n bietjie skade gelei het as gevolg van die vloede die laaste naweek. Ja, het 'n bietjie gevlieg, ons het baie te sê, maar dankie aan almal wat ingeloer het. Subscribe en like.
Thanks everybody.
Op YouTube, ons is op Facebook, ons is op Twitter. Kom ons hou die bokke dop Tonga en kom ons kyk of die Springbokke die ding kan doen en die wêreldbeker te kan verdedig en weer eens as wêreldkampioene gekroon word. Abby, jou ligte is nog aan. Ons praat volgende donderdag weer op Têkkel Talk Show live. Serio.